Hello once again and welcome to one of my live sessions here, and today I'm going to be painting the eye of a Siamese cat. I know, lovely eyes, aren't they? They really are. Just see the one in the bottom corner down there. I'm going to start off with a very weak wash oh, where's my test paper? This is phthalo blue or intense blue or Windsor blue, whichever one you want to use, mixed with a tiny amount of ultramarine violets. Okay, just a tiny amount. You want the weakest colour on first of all. So let's just lightly soften that down a little bit. This is my putty eraser. Just take off any residual pencil or graphite if you wish. That one back. Okay, here we go. Now when you look at the eye, you can see we've got the lightest patch around there. Could do another brush really, couldn't I? The lightest patch around there. And also this side down there as well, isn't it? Very, very pale. So using a very watery version of this, you can barely see the colour on the paper. I'm going to add this on first of all. And also around here, now we do need to make sure we've got a place for the highlight, which is basically this area here, isn't it? That's the main highlighted area. It's just a tiny amount of colour, that's all it is, look. But you also need to add this for the background colour, so when you really look deep into that photograph, you can see a lot of the light areas there, can't you? There's lots there. I'm not wetting the paper first of all. Oh, watch out for any water runs. Oh, that was close. Then bring that down to about there. As I mentioned, this is what we can see behind the scenes. So behind all those details that we can see inside the eye. As I always say to my members on Patreon, the more that you look, the more you'll see. So keep looking. My eyes are glancing back and forth to my reference photograph, which is directly in front of me. I can't take it off the holder. Just on a tablet. So just refer to that every few seconds. And a few more down there as well. And also around the pupil. Okay, a little bit around there. Now another reason why I'm not wetting the paper first of all is because I want it to dry a little bit quicker really. Not that you should have a rush of painting, of course. Oh no. Of course not. Then down there as well. So it's quite patchy on there really. And then down the side. Yeah, let's get a little bit more down there. As per usual with watercolours, you want to start off light and gradually build the layers up as you go along. That's all I'm doing here. So the lightest shade first of all, the lightest colour, lightest tones. Tones. Can be the word of the day, tones. Okay, that'll do. So I can go for the same mixture again, but slightly thicker. And this time, this has got a tiny amount of Payne's Grey in it. So instead of really watery like that one there, I'm going to go for this one, which is more of a milky consistency. As I mentioned, a slight amount of Payne's Grey, and that's this sort of colour here. I'm going to get a little bit more, to be honest with you. A tiny amount more Payne's Grey. You've got to be careful because it will completely deaden that colour far too quickly if you're not careful with it. Just a little bit in there, lot. Payne's Grey. There you go. So load it, give it a roll. Give it a tap or two on some kitchen roll first of all, and then you can start to add this onto the paper. I think what I might do, you know, we've got this bit of a wiggle down here. Sort of like a meandering river, isn't it? Comes down and around, goes up a little bit there, comes down, then around, and then dips back down to there. What a funny shape that is, it really is. And then you got another one there, kind of wiggles and jiggles around there. And also this one, a bit like a W. So it goes like that. It kind of works its way around, doesn't it? I just nearly join those two areas together. And then we can start on this side, do the same thing again. Very fine, very light. This is why I tap the brush on some kitchen roll first of all. So load it, give it a roll as you pull away. Get some kitchen roll or some towel, paper towel, anything will do. A couple of taps should be enough. Then barely touching the paper, 2 hairs in air, just about anyway, with my size 00 brush. And very lightly, just go over and look at those shapes you can see within that reference photograph. It goes all the way down to the bottom eyelid, doesn't it? Just about on all, not on all of them though. There's a bit more gappy there. I'm also going to just very lightly go around the eye, just to seal that pencil into the paper. Because the more you work around it, the more the pencil marks will disappear on you. Very lightly, just tint that paper like that. We will darken that in a bit. Not just yet though. And the same around there. You can see how fine you can get when you don't overload that brush. That sounded very serious then, didn't it? Sorry about that. Do apologise. I'm not a serious person. Then you got the other part of the eyelid just going down there. That sort of blends away into the fur just below. So it's all about looking, really looking at that photograph. Then you can start to apply some basic patterns within the eye. Remember, this is just a more of a milky consistency paint at the moment. All this will be softened down as well. I don't want it to looking too harsh. Because when you look at that photograph again, you can see that these colours are, well, they're not really kind of striking sharp edges, are they? When you look in that photo, it's not really that sharp in there. They're slightly blurry. So we need to replicate that really, if we can. Very slightly. If we find our wash underneath our first layer isn't sort of deep enough in colour, we can use the wash as a means of softening down these details we're putting on now. And the other good thing about all of this as well, you know, we've got the highlight there. You can lift off the paint to create the highlights as well. But for now, I'm going to stipple around that and scumble around it. Stipple and scumble. If you don't know what I mean by stippling and scumbling, well, you know stippling is the base of this here, isn't it? Lots of tiny dots. Scumble is like this. Got a bit of a shaky hand, but doing it very tiny like that, with hardly any paint on the brush. And that's basically what I'm doing here. Just working my way around, looking at where it's got to go. I can just about make out some lines coming away from the pupil as well. Like a clock face, you know, imagine that's the centre of the clock. You can barely see them, but they are there. And they all get softened down as well. They really will. Now the only thing with phthalo blue is that it is a staining colour. So you will find that it could blend a little bit, but not massively. Okay? And also Payne's Grey is as well. Just as it happens. So lots of little stipple marks, lots of little tiny marks we can see within that eye there. If you want it slightly bluer, go back to your watery version. Just on camera there, I know. I can see what you can see. Yeah. But add that in as well. Just more of the phthalo blue, just a small amount of that ultramarine violet. Just to slightly blue it a little bit more now. It's only when you start getting the mid-tones on, you start to see that the lightest tones, or the nearly light tones anyway, are too light. So you have to adjust it as you go along. And then down towards the bottom of the eye. Get that. Already we're getting colour on that eye. The thing with Siamese cat's eyes, there's so much detail. In fact, a lot of cat's eyes are like that. You know, I painted a tabby cat a long while ago, and the detail within the eye is unbelievable. I do want to find a lot of detail in our horse's eyes as well. I do have a thing for painting eyes. When I'm working on the tutorials I do for Patreon, one of the things I concentrate on a lot are the eyes of the animal. Because as we know, when you look at a photograph, those eyes are the soul, aren't they? They're the life of that painting, really. So that's where the life is kind of held within. So you've got to get the eyes right to begin with. Once you've got the eyes right within a painting, then you can start to get everything else right. And work away from those eyes. This is another reason why I tend to paint the eyes first when I'm working on something like this. Let's go back to that one now. The one with the Payne's grey. I've got a darker colour. I mean, basically what we're using today, if you include the white, I'm going to put a little bit of white in places, possibly. You're probably looking at 4 different colours. That's it. Really? I know. That's all I'm using today. I challenge myself. Limit the amount of colours that you've got, which really makes you think about where you apply those colours and how you use them, and also how you mix them as well. So a little bit more around there, and down here. Okay, now I can just see, I'm going to get some more of that. Just a hint of some details around there, slowly coming together, very slowly. The colour's not deep enough yet, I know. But when we start thickening the blue down, that's when the colour gets deeper. I'll show you what I mean, look. Let's go for some deeper colour. There we go. So slightly thicker again. Then we start to get a bit of contrast in there. Just around there. Go over that little line again. And then you need to blend that as well. But just in that corner there, look. And then start adding slightly darker pigments now. Or darker tones. Within some of these details. I'm trying to leave some of the lighter areas showing through. But if you don't worry. I'll try to get around that in a bit. If I'm going to purposely, I'll purposely cover some of those areas up. So I'm going to show you how to kind of bring them back. Make it really stand out. Because you still want to show the detail in those eyes as well, don't you? Okay, a little bit more. Now if you've got any questions, anything like that, let me know. Let me know below. If you're on the live chat, just let me know through there as well. If I'm able to, after I've gone live, I shall answer those questions as well, okay, for you. Obviously I can't really do it whilst I'm going live because of the fact that I'm trying to concentrate on a painting for you. A clean damp brush. I'm going to lightly soften some of these details down now. See what I mean by that phthalo blue and the Payne's grey? It doesn't move very much, does it? But it moves a little bit. That's all I'm after. Just a small amount like that. It's probably good actually that it doesn't move too much. Leaving the lighter areas in between as well. And working around that pupil. It's a long process working on eyes. If you want to get them right, you've got to take your time on them. You really have. Okay, a little bit more around there. And when you look at this eye is actually a little bit smaller than that one. And that's exactly as it is. I know. When I drew this out, I thought, that's not right, Paul. Come on, you've been doing this for 40 years now. You should be able to get the eyes right. And when I compared the sizes, yeah, it's definitely a little bit smaller in height. Not so much in width. All I do to kind of measure that is use the tip of my brush and my thumbnail. So I'll measure it like this. Thumbnail, got it? Clean thumbnail, by the way. Thumbnail like that. So your thumbnail to the tip of the brush, so that's the height of the eye. You compare it to that one, you can see the difference there, look. So it's a fraction shorter or lower down than this one. Even though the width, if I go dialing across like so, from this corner to that corner like that, nail and tip of the brush, that is the same width. Look at that, exactly the same width as that one. Amazing really, isn't it? When you start comparing sizes like that. Let's see what you find out. Okay, then bring it down here. Every layer of colour you put on will get richer and richer in tone. So already, yes, that's coming together. So I'm getting excited now. I know, I do get like that. already. Lightly soften every layer you add, remember. Now soften down, just clean water now, look. Just around here. On the paper I'm working with today, by the way, is Blockingford. St Cuthbert's Mill, really good company. Been using them for many, many years. It's a cold pressed paper, £140. Just in case you're interested. Okay, and also down there. And say hello to Jo as well, because she's all manning the computer for any YouTube chat live comments. Hello, Jo. Working our way down here now. Right, here we go. Let's start getting deeper in tone. Now we've got all the base details on, we can start to really make it stand out. Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait. Just soften that down there a little bit more. Here we go. Back to the same colour again. You know the one now, the phthalo blue, the Payne's grey, and that little bit of ultramarine violet in there. Ooh, give it a tap. We've got some kitchen roll to the side here as well. We'll start to darken some of these lines. That's going to go darker yet, but I have got some other colours there, as you can see. Okay. So we'll be darkening that down. Not far away either. And then a little bit down there. I'm going to define, well, we've got a bit of a shape around there, haven't we? So I'm going to define, not by outlining it, by tapping. Little tiny taps. But just make it stand out just a little bit, like that. This highlight going across the pupil, we'll do that in a bit, the pupil anyway, when we get our darkest layer on. And the darkest layer goes on last. Well, the last part is probably a little bit of white. But with colours, the darkest area is usually the last thing I tend to do. Then we've got a bit of a shape over this highlight around there. And around there as well. Oh, yeah. And also, when you come to the bottom of the eye down there, and gradually building up some of the shapes below this wiggly line, this meandering river. Slightly darker down there, we'll need to soften that as well. And let's get a little bit more Payne's grey in there, just a tiny amount just there. Let's sort of that sort of wiggly line out now, make it darker. It's not all dark all the way around though, is it? Just in places. So don't make it all the same, definitely different in places there. Probably there, there. Definitely very wiggly around this area here. Now, I think, looking at that, that's nearly it for that layer. Remember, the more you look, the more you see. Oh, here's a factoid for you if you're interested, by the way. I don't know much about cats, but this is what I found out on the old Tinternet. So I'll let you know. You can tell me if I'm right or wrong, or if the fact is right or wrong. Apparently, when they are born, most Siamese cats are completely white. Really? They don't develop their kind of markings after a few weeks of birth. That's when they start to kind of get all their lovely markings they tend to have. I didn't know that, you know. So if you're a cat owner, especially a Siamese cat owner, and you've got any factoids you want to share with us as well, please post them in the comments down below for me. I'd love to hear that and find out what you find about that. Apparently it's one of the most intelligent cats around. It really is. More so than me, really. Okay. Now I'm going to lightly blend this and then give it a quick dry with a hairdryer. But whilst I'm doing that, I'm going to tell you about something else. Another cats, I know, it's a theme going on at the moment. And this is one I'm working on Patreon. And it's a sand cat. Now if you've never seen a sand cat before, they are beautiful cats, they really are. And guess what? They've also got blue eyes. So I'm back in about a minute, and I'm just lightly dry this off a minute with a hairdryer. Now today's project for you is how to paint this lovely sand cat. We'll start off by painting that background, and I want that background to be more of a soft, kind of mottled feel. I don't want the background fighting with the cat, because we want to make sure that the viewer's attention is solely on that cat. One thing I do focus on quite a lot within this video are those stunning blue-green eyes, because after all, that's where we see the life within that cat. So we have to get those eyes just right. So by spending more time on those eyes, we can really fine-tune those colours and the details that we can see there. Now the fur for this cat is quite pale, isn't it? But yet we still have those rich brown colours in there. And also plenty of white. So if you're not sure, a little bit nervous about using white paint, this video lesson will show you exactly how to apply it. And of course we'll be working with lots of fine detail and layers along the way. So let's get the brushes wet, shall we? And let's get started. Well, that was a quick dry. Oh well. It could do though, it could certainly do. Just a quick blast with the hairdryer, that's all I've had to do with that. I'll put a little bit more down there. As I mentioned, I do want to put a little bit of white in there in places just to make it really stand out. This is where you want to start to assess it before you get the darkest layers on. And think, well, okay, maybe I want to take a little bit off there or add a bit more in there. This should be softer here, that's for sure. But there you go, what do you think to the sand cat then? I know, what a lovely cat it is, it really is. And I fully enjoyed painting that as well. And filming it all the way through. You know, so really enjoyable to work on. So if you fancy having a go at doing that one, obviously that's now available on my Patreon channel. Yeah, just like that. Okay, right. That'll do. Here we go. Next colour. Guess what? It's the same mix, but this time a little bit darker. A little bit darker. As you can see, a little bit more of the Payne's grey in there. Just a touch more. In fact, it's just about dried up in there, isn't it, really? Come on, ball. A bit more water in there. I'm always very shy of putting too much water in. Put a bit of that in there. That's the same colour again, I'll tell you about that in a minute. Let's get a bit more phthalo blue in there. Gonna have to reactivate it a touch more. Wake it up. Wake up, will you? So I've got my half pans here, by the way. These are all Winsor & Newton I tend to use. I do like my Winsor & Newton paints. Go for that one as well. That's better, that's good. Yeah, they're really nice paints to work with. And again, I've been working with Winsor & Newton for many, many years. And also, as I said, the Bockingford paper. I don't get paid by them, no, of course not. Of course I don't. Okay, here we go. So just darkening down the lower lid now. I've got to add one more layer of darkness on top of that, but not much. This is where within the eye, you want to start looking around and thinking, does it want to be darker anywhere else? No, I don't think it does it? So start to work out where the pupil is. So I answered my question straight away there, didn't I? I'm clever like that. Just using this colour initially, block in where the pupil is. I know we've got a highlight coming across there, so you can leave a bit of a gap there if you want to. Just block it in. I always tend to underpaint it, in other words, don't go right to the edges first of all, because I've got to work out how sort of high it is within the eye, or within the picture. For example, you can see there's more of a gap there compared to the top. So the bottom of the pupil is just below the halfway point. Probably about there, and I can widen it slightly more now. Okay, clean brush, just lightly soften this end down. Remember, this is where the highlight is, just inside the eye there. Okay, now I'm happy enough with that. Let's go for our darkest colour. Oh, the darkest colour. That's a mixture of phthalo blue again, trying to keep the sort of theme going so it all works together, with a tiny amount of lamp black in there. Just to darken it. Nice and creamy though, on there. So once again, give it a load, give it a roll as you pull away, give it a tap or two, and then start to apply that to the pupil. Okay, very carefully. You can see why I tend to use a size 00 brush a lot. Okay, a little bit more down there. And this is where we also got sort of spikes coming away from the pupil, as you can see here. A few little spikes coming away like that. Barely discernible. You can just about see them there, can't you? On some of them anyway, barely noticeable. Can't get the words out today. Okay, a bit more there. Been filming this morning as well, working on a red cardinal. Oh, or northern cardinal to be precise, isn't it? Beautiful bird. Okay, just working around there. This is where we can darken where it needs to be darkened now. The darkest colour. The lower eyelid again. Barely touching the paper. Okay, you can see I'm loading it, just the tip. I'm not really thoroughly loading that brush. Small amount. Let's go around the eye. Look at the way these contrasting colours start to work together. You can see now we're starting to get a little bit of shape within this eye. At the corner of the eye, work out where that is. Then we've got, oh, I'll tell you what we have got, you know. Just notice this comes around about like that. Sort of curls around a little bit. They got the eye ring. Just down towards the bottom. And a little bit more down there. And I might just darken the top as well, because, I mean, that's where the fur goes anyway, isn't it? Just darken it, just so we get a bit more contrast on there. Very lightly. And so far, got a fairly detailed eye going there. Okay, now we need to work on this highlights around this eye, don't we? So a bit of water just in there, but only small amounts. And tiny circles just blend in the top of that pupil, just around there. Just blend it slightly. And then blend out. Okay. Now, this is where you want to reassess anything around the painting, what you've got. Getting a bit more of that colour there now. And start to look at what needs to be changed. So I think what I might do, there's a ring around the eye. I'm going to darken that a little bit more now. It's not dark in places. Some places it is. Like here it's really pitch black. But others it's fairly pale. So we can go for our black colour. That's where we can fill some of this line in. But not much. Just to there. They kind of appears again around there. Then joins together around there. I love it. Now then, lifting off. Remember what I said about phthalo blue and Payne's grey? They are staining pigments. So because they're staining pigments, you find lifting paint off doesn't work quite well, not as well. You can add paint on, like a bit of white, and then tone that paint down once it's dry. So if we find it doesn't lift off to create some extra details, then we can do it the other way around. There's more than one way of doing it, there really is. It's all about thinking things through before we start on a painting as well. I'm trying to plan it beforehand, before that paint kind of touches that watercolour paper. Also plan your colours out before you start. I do a lot of colour testing for a lot of things, like I did for another painting here, before you even go to that painting. At least then you know you've got the colours roughly about right before you start. It just saves too many happy accidents along the way, it really does. So I'm going to blend in this area down here now in the corner of the eye. And I think I'm going to add a little bit more blue around here because I do want to make sure I've got a bit of a highlight in there. So it's really softening it down now, isn't it? Quite a lot, in fact. I'm going to go for the other blue just there. And just tiny taps again. A bit more texture around there. Remember what I said in the beginning? The more you look, the more you see. I keep spotting things. I keep thinking, oh yeah, that needs lifting off there. And you become very familiar with the subject you're painting. You really do. You know, when you're working on a cat, a dog, a bird, whatever it might be, a mouse, an ant, yeah, well anyway, then you find that you start to get familiar with that subject, that particular animal, and how things work. You know, the way that the fur lays and so on, the way the details work in the eye, you know. Right, I'm going to go for some white paint now, so bear with me a minute while I get another ceramic dish. These are really cheap, you know. You can buy stuff like this from charity shops, or thrift shops, I mean the US call them, don't they? We have charity shops here in the UK. Get a little bit of opaque white. This is one by SAA, but there's different ones on the market. Just make sure it's definitely opaque and not semi-opaque or something like that. This is quite old, so you can see how thick it is now. But it works really well, I quite like it. there's a variety of different ones on the market, as I said. You can even go for, there's kind of one here for you. That's one by Winsor & Newton. Their designer gouache, or gouache, depends how you pronounce it, I know. But there's a variety of ones, I know. Look around and see what you can find. Now you can use that for the highlights, or you can just put a bit of masking fluid on before you start to reserve the white of the paper. Oh, wrong brush. That's the wrong brush, Paul. I want my size 00. Not my size 2. It's too big. Too big. I consider a size 6, for example, a very large brush. Well, some people I know, some watercolours think, that's a small brush, Paul. In fact, you can buy larger brushes with a decent tip on as well. So you can get very long, slender tips on a larger brush. Okay, here we go. So a bit of a hint of light there. And you can use a little bit of artistic license if you want to here. And really change the way it looks. So we've got a highlight coming down here. Very carefully. Once again, barely touching the paper. And, oh, there's sank then. Are you lonesome tonight? Anyway, a little bit down there. I'm going to blend that in a minute. Ooh, and just a little bit. And then down here. Yeah. Ooh. I'm also going to add a bit of white in here, even though there isn't any white in there, because, as I said earlier on, I can't lift that paint off because it's staining. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add some paint over the top of this very shortly, because it dries very quickly anyway. I'm going to stipple it. Stipple and tap, leave gaps in between, so it's not too even. Just to kind of make sure we can make those areas stand out. Just add a little bit more. You can see just by putting this white in, the difference that's making already, quite a lot, isn't it? It really is. And then around the wiggly bit, our meandering river. Add a tiny amount around there. We're nearly there now, aren't we? We really are. And down to there. Oh. Okay, and also around there. I do have videos on here about painting eyes, also about painting cats. So after we've been live, once it's all processed through YouTube, we'll put a link on the screen for you so you know which one to click on. Alright, so if you're watching this when it's not live, hello, then you can do that. Okay. Remember what I said earlier on about questions about what cat you've got, if you've got a cat. If not, what cat would you like, you know? What facts do you know about Siamese cats? Let me know. I'd like to know in the comments down below, because it's quite interesting to find out. And as a thank you from you to me, if you don't mind, would you mind clicking on the subscribe button down below, please? And also the like button, because if when you do that, you know, YouTube see that as well very often, what we hope they do. And it does help promote my channel to other budding artists just like yourself out there. And we know that's very, very important, we really do. Because the more instruction we can give people to help them with artistic kind of hobbies, then the better it is, isn't it? So that's what I'm on here to do, is trying to help people with their watercolours. It really is. Okay, back to our colour. And I'm going to go just for a little bit of our phthalo blue, or ultramarine blue, or Windsor blue, whatever you want to call it. Okay, a little bit there. And just add this in very quickly over the top of that white in places. The problem is if you add it in and keep going over the top, that white paint will move. And it will. And when it moves, then you find it just goes all sort of muddy looking, a bit cloudy. Clean brush. And what I said about this area here, lightly soften like that. A bit more white. A bit more white around there. I'm losing the plot today. Sorry about that. And probably just down to here. Yeah, I think so, don't you? I think that'll do. I think so. Oh, nearly. Grab some of my blue a minute, off camera. Just tone that one down there. So that's going to give us some ideas on how to work on cat's eyes. Now, you can do more on this if you want to. And you can really make it stand out. But for me, for today, I think that will do. If you want to learn how to paint more cat's eyes, and I mentioned all about cats as well, or even just fur, then have a look at the video to the top right hand corner of the screen in a bit, okay? That will show in a bit, after it's gone live, after the YouTuber process the video. So keep them brushes wet, and until next time around, I'll, well, talk to you soon. Bye for now.